गोपीजनवल्लभा
Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Jaya Gopi Janavallabha Girivaradari Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yashodanandana Vrajajanaranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunda Vihari Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Govinda Radha Govinda Radhe. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnu Pad Paramahamsa Parivrajakacarya Ashapata Sati Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakuna Radhakun Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulasi Devi Ki Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki Gaura Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Welcome everyone to today's Bhagavatam class. Today we're reading Canto 3, Chapter 30, Text 22, 23, and then we'll stay on 24. So, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So we can read, we'll start by reading the Sanskrit of 22. Shutchit parita rikadavana lanaye Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Kritcharena prishtekashaya chataditas Chalatya shakto pinirashamodake Shutchit parito rikadavana lanilai Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Kritcharena prishtekashaya chataditas Chalatya shakto pinirashramadake Shutchit parito rikadavana lanilai Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Kritcharena prishtekashaya chataditas Chalatya shakto pinirashramodake. Please chant. Shutchit parita rikadavana lanilai Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas Chalatya shaktopi nirashramodake Shutvit parito vikadavanalaninai Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas Chalatya shaktopi nirashramodake
Shutrit parito vikadavanala
Shutvit parito vikadavanala
Santapyamana patitaptavaluke
Santapyamana patitaptavaluke
Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas
Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas
Chalatya shaktopi nirashashramodake
Chalatya shaktopi nirashramodake Shutvit parito vikadavanala Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas Chalatya shaktopi nirashramodake Vaishnavis Shutvit parito vikadavanala Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas Chalatya shaktopi nirashramodake Shutvit parito vikadavanala Santapyamana patitaptavaluke Vijayana prishte kashayachadaditas Chalatya shaktopi nirashramodake. Is there any word in this verse specifically that's familiar? We sing it every Davanala. Kuchena. We sing it every single day? And what does it mean? Forest fire. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and he is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. Text 23, translation. While passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue, and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. Text 24, we'll be reading this one. Thus, translation. Thus he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. Purport. 1 yojana is calculated to be 8 miles, and he has to pass along a road which is therefore as much as 792,000 miles. Such a long distance is passed over within a few moments only. The subtle body is covered by the constables so that the living entity can pass such a long distance quickly and at the same time tolerate the suffering. This covering, although material, is of such fine elements that material scientists cannot discover what the coverings are made of. To pass 792,000 miles within a few moments seems wonderful to the modern space travelers. They have so far traveled at a speed of 18,000 miles per hour. But here, we see that a criminal passes 792,000 miles within a few seconds only, although the process is not spiritual, but material. Om Jnana-timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Sunyavari Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadha Shivasari Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One more time. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Under this, I'll read just the English one more time of the first one. Under the scorching sun, the criminal has to pass through roads of hot sand with forest fires on both sides. He is whipped on the back by the constables because of his inability to walk, and he is afflicted by hunger and thirst. But unfortunately, there is no drinking water, no shelter, and no place for rest on the road. While passing on that road to the abode of Yamaraj, he falls down in fatigue, and sometimes he becomes unconscious, but he is forced to rise again. In this way, he is very quickly brought to the presence of Yamaraj. Thus, he has to pass 99,000 yojanas within 2 or 3 moments, and then he is at once engaged in the torturous punishment which he is destined to suffer. So my first thoughts when reading this, one, all glories to Param Brahma Prabhu for giving such a wonderful class yesterday. It was very heavy, and it was very, what's the word? Made you come awake. Uh-oh. Reading about the hellish planets is something that we might not do every day, but it's a good reminder that what we're doing is actually very urgent. Spiritual life is very urgent. And actually, before I start, I want to read one of my favorite quotes from Prabhupada. He was giving a talk in London, and he's talking something very nice about Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7. And he's talking about how easy it is to remember Krishna. He says, there's no difficulty. Why do you ask this question? It is said, Rasoham apsu kaunteya, Bhagavad Gita 7:8, that I am the taste of water. So where is the difficulty? You take the taste of water, there is taste. Krishna says, I am that taste. So you understand that this taste is Krishna. Where is the difficulty? You do not know what is Krishna, but Krishna says, I am this taste. Why don't you accept it? Then you know Krishna. According to your position, you understand Krishna. Krishna says, I am this, so take it, that taste of water. As soon as you drink water, oh, here's Krishna, so you will, smaranam, remember. He goes on, and then later in this class, there's a girl who asks, does Krishna speak the Bhagavad Gita in the hellish planets? Have any of you guys heard this? Heard this story? So someone asked this girl, does Krishna speak the Bhagavad Gita in the hellish planets? And Prabhupada, he's so funny. He says, hellish planet? It is a hellish planet. And then there's laughter. Ha 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 ha. And he says, you are not thinking it is hellish. This is hellish planet. What do you mean by hellish planet? Especially this London, always dark and moist. And what do you want more hellish? You have to close your door. You cannot go out, then go to the mine and subway. That is hellish. So it's a little relatable. It's very, very dark and cold here in New York, always taking the subway. We don't have mines, but we do have subways. So my initial thought whenever I was reading these verses and thinking like, what am I going to say on this description of the hellish planets? And my first thought was that it's very nightmarish, right? Let me see. It's quite scary, actually, to read these verses. I don't know if I did this right. Maybe. but it evokes some emotion, right? Whenever we read these things, I can only speak for myself, but immediately I think, how does this relate to me? Is this going to be something that I have to experience? Is this some like knowledge that I'll have to use? Is this something that I should expect? This is my initial feeling of like, I don't want to go through this. And also I was thinking that it sounds exactly like a horror movie. Like if you've seen any horror movie before, blood and gore and murders and stuff like that, it's like you're getting dragged and there's suffering and there's no hope for relief. And so when I was reading this, I was really thinking like, it's quite, in my experience of bhakti, it's quite opposite. Like what I'm reading right here that evokes kind of this fear, my experience of bhakti is full of joy, full of happiness. So I was thinking, how do these two go together? How do you understand this and still be joyful and not have that fear? And another thing that I was thinking was that how specific and scientific that Srimad Bhāgavatam is, that it's, even in this purport, Srila Prabhupada is describing exactly how fast, 792,000 miles, and how fast modern day space travelers go 18,000 miles per hour. But how exact is this information that we can trust? We get the details of what we need to know. And I was thinking too that we travel all day long. I mean, if we don't have a car, if we're not on a plane or a train or something, we have our legs. We're constantly traveling from one place to the next. We're never just still. And so to think like, how do we travel? Especially if we have a long trip or something, we prepare for that. If we're taking a long road trip, or even maybe if we're just going out for the day, we have to run errands, we might pack our lunch, prasadam, or we might bring our water bottle or a book to read or something like that, right? We prepare for that travel. So in the same way, it's kind of bringing to light this preparation. What can you expect? What do you need to prepare for? And so as you're traveling, understanding that you are spirit soul, you're not this material body, but if you stay in the material world, if you retain your material body, then this is how you'll need to travel. So how will you prepare, right? And going back also to this fear of God, a lot of religions, another thought that I was having is that a lot of religions, they actually depend a lot on that fear. Like Christianity, for example, it's often said that it's kind of it's something to be proud of if you are a God-fearing man. If someone who is, afraid, fearful of God, then that is something that is a very good quality. And so why or how could that be a good thing, right? Because to be afraid of something, usually it means that it's dangerous or it will cause harm. And so, there is quite a good amount of reason to be afraid. Because if we don't have that personal relationship with Krishna or God, then this material world is very scary. There's danger at every single step. So this God-fearing, Krishna says, time I am, and destroyer of the worlds. So there's very good reason to be afraid of that Krishna, who is time, who is destroying all the worlds. Because if we're here in this world and we're depending on time, then this body will get destroyed, right? And another reason is that different religions are made for different calibers of people, different spiritual practices. Also in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that all these paths, they lead to me. In all respects, everyone follows me. And I record them accordingly, right? I reciprocate with them. And so in the same way, these different religions are made for these different levels of consciousness, different ways that people are able to perceive the supreme truth, the absolute truth. And so in that same way, for someone who is not quite ready to voluntarily or with their own inspiration serve and love God, then the opposite is true, is that if we are fearful, then maybe at least we'll protect ourselves and we'll go down the path of following rules and regulations so that steadily we grow to a higher consciousness. And there's another verse in Bhagavad Gita, Neha Bikrama Nashasti Pratyayavo Vidyate Svalpam apyasa dharmasya chayate mahato bhaya. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear. So what is that fear that Krishna is talking about? Animal, is that what you just said? Oh. Well, Prabhupada, he explains in the purport that it's exhausting. What is it? Your lower forms of life, yeah. He expresses that you have this opportunity. You have such a rare opportunity of the human form of life. And the greatest type of fear is that you will lose this opportunity and go, like Arjuna Nanda said, to the lower forms of life. And you'll lose that opportunity. You'll lose your ability, your ability to be conscious and be able to perceive the absolute truth. So another thing that I was thinking was that how glorious Srimad Bhāgavatam is, and even Mahabharata, and how they were designed by Vyasadeva to capture our minds, right? For someone who can't just absorb all this dry philosophical truth of all the Vedas, then we have Srimad Bhāgavatam and Mahabharata, which is full of stories, right? Full of devotees, full of curses and messes, like mistakes, devotees going through things and learning, right? So that we also can learn. And I was thinking that tragedies attract our attention. And this is kind of a dual purpose of these stories, Srimad Bhāgavatam, is that because there's a higher point or a purpose, Vyasadeva is trying to capture our attention. How can he get this message across? And there's so many ways, so many different facets of the absolute truth, so many perspectives, the way that we can understand it, right? There's 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 of us in this room right now, 12. And we all have different experiences, right? Different realizations, different experiences and relationships with Krishna, right? And so in the same way, it's not that these truths are different. They are the same, but they're quite unique, right? So in that same way, Bhagavatam has all of these different stories to convey this same message, that our purpose here is to love Krishna and to give our devotion to him. And one other point is that Earth is a very special place. We're talking about the hellish planets, and there's the heavenly planets, and such a wide expansion. But Earth, however small that it is very special because we have the opportunity here to go up or down. And it's the perfect balance of enjoyment and suffering. We suffer just enough to know that maybe I don't want to be here, but we enjoy just enough that we think, no, I can stay here and I can be happy, which is very tricky, right? And human life specifically, even though we're on Earth and there's 8,400,000 species of life, still the human is the most special, right? Because again, we have that ability to be conscious, to perceive the absolute truth. And I was reading from Canto 12, the story of the Avadut Brahmin, and he's got the 24 gurus. And there's 2 stories that stuck out to me. There's one where he takes the guru of, I believe it's the falcon, and the falcon goes and picks up a fish, I think, and then some other, as he's flying off and he thinks, yes, I got it. This is my dinner. I'm good. As soon as he comes in, these other falcons swoop in and they steal his fish. And the falcon, the lesson the Avadut Brahmin takes is that suffering is just in the mind. Because as soon as the fish was gone, then also he didn't have to worry about the birds attacking him anymore. So now his suffering was gone. And later on, the last guru that he takes is his own body. And I'll read just some text where he's talking about this specifically. He says, this is, I believe it's 12:9, 27 through 29. He says, "A man who has many wives is constantly harassed by them. He is responsible for their maintenance, and thus all the ladies constantly pull him in different directions, each struggling for her self-interest. Similarly, the material senses harass the conditioned soul, pulling him in many different directions at once. On one side, the tongue is pulling him to arrange tasty food. Then, thirst drags him to get a suitable drink. Simultaneously, the sex organs clamor for satisfaction, and the sense of touch demands soft, sensuous objects. The belly harasses him until it is filled. The ears demand to hear pleasing sounds. The sense of smell hankers for pleasant aromas, and the fickle eyes clamor for pleasing sights. Thus, the senses, organs, and limbs, all desiring satisfaction, pull the living entity in many directions. And then the Supreme Personality of Godhead, expanding his own potency, Maya Shakti, created innumerable species of life to house the conditioned souls. Yet, by creating the form of trees, reptiles, animals, birds, snakes, and so on, the Lord was not satisfied within his heart. Then he created human life, which offers the conditioned soul sufficient intelligence to perceive the absolute truth, and became pleased. After many, many births and deaths, one achieves the rare human form of life, which, although temporary, affords one the opportunity to attain the highest perfection. Thus, a sober human being should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection of life, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. After all, sense gratification is available even in the most abominable species of life, whereas Krishna consciousness is possible only for a human being. So when I was reading this, naturally, one of the principles of Bhagavad Gita that I was reminded of is icha, choice or desire. It's interesting. Before Krishna consciousness, I never really related those two words, choice and desire. But they're really inseparable. What you choose to do has to be connected to what you desire. And so with this, also in this last part, he's saying the sober human should quickly endeavor for the ultimate perfection, as long as his body, which is always subject to death, has not fallen down and died. So it reminds me again of Prabhupada. He's saying, this is a hellish planet. You're here. This is not happiness. And even there's another lecture. I can't remember where he is, but it's in the Hare Krishna documentary. And it's Prabhupada, who is very, very, with a lot of emotion. He's saying, why do you have to accept death? Why do you have to be born? Why do you have to get sick? Why do you have to die? Why? You have to choose, right? If we die, if we accept a material body, if we're born, if we get sick, that is our choice. We have to choose that, actually. We have to have that desire. And so this urgency in realizing, understanding that this is quite an urgent situation, that we need to get back home where we actually belong. And when we have this knowledge, the more that we're absorbing this knowledge and our intelligence is growing, naturally our compassion also should grow. If we're having real knowledge, which in Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 13, it talks about the items of knowledge, which are like humility, pridelessness, nonviolence, simplicity. And so many, there's so many. One of them also is the perception of the evil of birth, death, old age, and disease. This is one item of knowledge. If we have that knowledge, then naturally we'll become very compassionate, which is one of these qualities. And although we're suffering, and if we're like me, very self-centered, we'll think, I don't want to suffer. Naturally, when we see the suffering of others, we also will be urged to act. And I use the word urged because it is urgent. It's the same. We'll be forced, basically, to act out of compassion, intelligence. Because we know that everybody is suffering needlessly. It is not necessary to be here. There's no necessity to be in the material world. We don't have any business here at all. And so, like Prabhupada is constantly trying to do, is pull us out of ignorance. It's the first line that we sing in Guru Vashtakam. There's this forest fire, but the spiritual master comes and he extinguishes it. And so this is what Prabhupada has come to do, is extinguish the blazing fire of material existence. And so if your house is on fire, if this forest fire is on fire, what will you do? If someone comes and tries to pull you out, will you run away from them? No, don't run away. take their hand, take the instruction. Prabhupada has come and he has given us so much in such a short amount of time too, especially like coming to America and then leaving this world. In this short time, he's given everything. He's given all the keys. And not only has he given us so much knowledge so that we can help ourselves. We've got Bhagavad Gita, we've got Bhāgavatam, we've got Chaitanya Charitamrita. And even, Prabhupada was so merciful, but even more, he gave us so many of his sincere disciples, right? I think all of us here are is it second generation. Prabhupada disciples, and then us, right? So how fortunate are we that we have so many, we have so much access to Prabhupada, actually, right? We have so many people who are willing to help us, who have dedicated their lives to establishing temples and giving this knowledge. And so what to say? We should take advantage of that, right? And Prabhupada, the most mercy, the most power that he gave us, or the most empowering thing that he gave us, was the holy name, right? Following the orders of his spiritual master and up Parampara, the mission of Lord Chaitanya, is that he brought this mission of Sankirtan, Harinam Sankirtan, to the West, especially for us. And in Bhāgavatam it also says, in this age of Kali, intelligent persons perform congregational chanting to worship the incarnation of Godhead. This is our only hope, basically. In Kali Yuga, where everything is so messed up, it is only by the power of the holy name that we can do anything for ourselves or receive any kind of mercy. And we're so fortunate that just chanting one time, like the name of, or the story of Ajamil, he chanted Narayan, Narayan. He didn't chant Narayan for Krishna, he was chanting for his son, but still he gained, the result of that. And in Srimad Bhāgavatam also, he talks about how the reason that it was so powerful was that he had faith. He was calling for his son, and he knew his son would be there. He's calling for Narayan. Narayan, you're here, you're here. And then he's also chanting without offense. He didn't expect anything from it. He didn't expect to go on with whatever sinful activities he was doing. He was calling out in this pure way that actually attracted Narayan. And so in that same way, we have our instructions from Prabhupada: chant 16 rounds, follow the 4 regs, stay away from sinful activity, and depend on the holy name. Don't expect anything, but just give our faith to the holy name, that Prabhupada is going to take care of us, and the holy name also will diminish whatever past atrocious sinful activity that we've experienced. So I want to read just one more quote from Prabhupada, and then maybe we can open for questions or comments or constructive criticisms. This was at Columbus, May 19th, 1969. It was at some engagement lecture. So he says, human civilization is meant for understanding oneself, what I am, and act according to that. So Bhagavat says, if we do not come to that point of understanding myself, then whatever I am doing or acting, this is simply defeat or simply waste of time. At the same time, there is warning that we should not waste even a single moment of our life. So our Krishna consciousness movement is to let people know how much valuable life is and utilize it in that way. Our movement is Sarve Sukhino Bhavantu. Everyone be happy. Not only human society, even animal society. We want to see everyone happy. That is Krishna consciousness movement. And it is practical. It is not a dream. You can become happy. Don't be disappointed. Don't be confused. Your life has value. You, in this life, you can realize your eternal life, eternal blissful life of knowledge. It is possible. It is not impossible. So we are simply transmitting this message to the world that your life is very valuable. Don't waste it just like cats and dogs. Try to utilize it fully. That is the statement in the Bhagavad Gita. We have published Bhagavad Gita as it is. Try to read it. In that Bhagavad Gita, in the 4th chapter, it says, Janma karma me divyam yo janati tatvataha. If simply tries to understand what is Krishna, what is his business, what is his life, Where does he live? What does he do? Janma karma. Janma means appearance and disappearance. Karma means activities. Divyam, transcendental. Janma karma me divyam yo janati tatvataha. One who knows the appearance and activities of Krishna in fact, in truth, not by sentiment, but by scientific study, then the result is tyaktva deham punar janma naiti mam eti konteya. Simply by understanding Krishna, you'll no more have to come back to this miserable condition of material existence. This is a fact. Even in your life, in this life, you'll understand, you'll be happy. So these were some of my thoughts and my reflections and reading from listening to Srila Prabhupada. And I forgot to pray that I hope that whatever I said was beneficial and truthful and pleasing to all the devotees here. So I hope that if it's not true right now, I hope it becomes true later. And we can open up for any kind of comments or reflections. I'll make one more point while you think of nice questions to ask, or not questions, comments. I would like to hear your realizations. One thing that also I was reflecting on is that how in the heavenly planets, time is stretched for a long, long time. So one day of Brahma is, I forget exactly how long, but it's really, really long. And the same, in the heavenly planets, they live for just thousands and thousands of years. In the same way, the hellish planets, it might just be a moment, but time is stretched so that even just one moment takes a very long time. So one day in Earth years, in the heavenly planet, it might be 100 years. But then one day in the hellish planets, it could just be a moment, but the suffering, because it's illusion, it feels like so much longer, even though it's just a moment, and you have to go through 100 years of those moments that feel like forever. So I was reflecting on that, the relevance of time. And Divyangi, you have something?
Yeah, thank you for that thought. You were somehow, while you made it's pleasant, despite this verse, very intense. I was thinking, you mentioned, like why these descriptions are there in Srimad Bhāgavatam, you know, like the devotees about we have to know this, and you said that this should catch our attention, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I never thought about it. But then I think, you know, it's similar like Krishna, even if being devotees, we kind of tend to still go our own way. We may think, at least in my own example, you know, I'm thinking, yeah, I'm doing service, you know, I'm going with the plan of Krishna. But then, and, you know, just to kind of get ourselves out of this consciousness, Krishna sometimes has to do these extreme things. That, you know, for some people it might be not as extreme in this, but for some people it is. I just had one situation happened many years ago. I was in Harinam and I was supposed to go to school, and I was in a very bad mood. It was raining outside, and you know how sometimes you want to sleep, everyone very happy. And I went to school with this big bag of books. And I went up the stairs, but then, like, I was like, you know, what am I doing? I had a fast track car now. You know, just why would I ever leave? You know, I just have to be there and, you know, process it, what I was happening. And then, when I was going back, I fell down from the stairs. It was so bad. It was so bad because it was so slippery, the rain, and this bag. But once I kind of got up on my feet, I was thinking, oh my God, Krishna had to do this for me. Otherwise, and after this happened, actually, you know, I loved everyone. Everyone was very nice, you know, and I was so grateful that, you know, my life and, you know, no injuries or anything like that. And then I came back, you know, and everything was alright. But, you know, like, but you didn't have to do this. But I couldn't understand otherwise. So you had to, like, smash me on my head for that. Yeah, so it's interesting.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else? Yeah, well, I mean, on just a very natural response is that when we suffer, we want to not suffer. We immediately try to get out of that suffering, right? And so in the same way, when we're going through, and specifically, like, I brought up Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 about the items of knowledge. When we have those items of real knowledge, not just knowing philosophy, but developing the qualities of knowledge, then compassion is one of those. It just is naturally one of those. And especially if you have the knowledge that it's actually very simple to get out of this material world. And fortunately for us, we have Prabhupada who's made it very easy for us. So yeah, if you have knowledge, it should naturally ignite the compassion, because that's real. The items of knowledge is compassion. Does that make sense? I'm sorry, that wasn't a very satisfying answer.
Because in impersonalists, they might not have complete knowledge of Brahman, which of the Lord, but they are for sure, as Prabhupada calls them as transcendentalists, they are also well aware of Janamati, Janakī, Purusha, Krishna. But their compassion sometimes is limited because they keep themselves in seclusion to their own practice. But it doesn't mean that they actually don't understand the Janamati, Janakī. They are so focused in themselves that I don't know what their compassion is. I don't know what they do.
Yeah.
Sometimes there are certain sects of transcendentalists who do not actually exhibit compassion.
Yeah. So you're asking, why do those transcendentalists not experience compassion, or like not experience?
I was feeling that just knowing that Janamati, Janakī, and Purusha, Krishna, somehow I was not, I couldn't connect or reach compassion, because there are sects of transcendentalists who know it but hasn't resulted in compassion.
Yeah, specifically the impersonalist, right?
That's one example.
Are there other examples of like Vaishnavas?
Yeah. Many people who just sit in Vrindavan.
Many people in Vrindavan, you're saying?
Yeah. I mean, who don't go out to reach.
Yeah. But even then, even saving yourself too is an important aspect of being compassionate. So depending on what level you are, like I was hearing this lecture from Radhika Raman Prabhu yesterday, and he was saying that Prabhupada, he could have, if he had done the correct thing, then he would have just stayed in Vrindavan, right? That would have, the rules and regulations, go live in a holy place, chant a holy name, do everything for yourself. But because he was very compassionate, that's why he left. He left and came to basically the most degraded place in the world, out of compassion, out of real knowledge. And my point is that the Vaishnava, out of his intelligence, because he knows so much how much Krishna is eager for everyone to come back, he goes out and he wants to interrupt the suffering of others. And even if it's something very, very small, is that like Narada Muni and Mrigari, the hunter, like just kill the animals all the way. Don't leave them half dead. Work on your compassion. Even the Vaishnava, in very simple ways. It might not be that you go out and you come to New York City, but in very small ways, the Vaishnava is always very compassionate. That is not something that is, it's not a quality that you can not develop if you're trying to love Krishna, because Krishna also, his quality is that he is very compassionate. He is the most powerful Shakti that he has is his Kripa Shakti, his mercy. So in the same way, if we're developing self-realization, or if we're trying to realize God, naturally we'll realize that we have those qualities also. And so with that, the knowledge of self-realization, we also will realize our own compassion. It will fructify. Is that a better answer? Okay, Hare Krishna. Narada Muni?
Thinking about this comment too, with compassion, I was thinking about like how Prabhupada talks about impersonalists also, and how their compassion also becomes like mistaken. So they might be like isolating themselves and doing so-called bhajan, but then they go back and do like philanthropic activities, so they do things based on the following platform.
Yeah.
Nice class, by the way.
Thank you. I like that point. I haven't heard that before, is that real compassion is relieving Krishna of his anxieties. So I like that a lot. And also something about compassion is that although it is something that we do for others, I mean, of course we have compassion for ourselves, but we have compassion for others. It's also something that it's our consciousness. Compassion is our consciousness. So when we look at others in their spiritual practices, like for example, like Christians, they have this one saying, what would Jesus do? And you do that thing, right? And if you did what Jesus would do, you'd be very compassionate. You'd be a very nice person, right? You would take care, heal them and feed them and stuff like that. But then we see that sometimes they do things that are not so compassionate, like eating animals. And so the knowledge and the compassion that develops, it's not something that we can look at other spiritual practices and kind of gauge. But for our own self, it should be understood that our practice should lead us to act, to help others understand Krishna and relieve him of his anxieties. So I can't really speak about all the people who are living in Vrindavan and what they do, because I don't know. But I know what Prabhupada did, and I know what our acharyas did, and I know how, the qualities of Krishna from Srimad Bhāgavatam and Bhagavad Gita. So, yeah. It's 9 a.m., so I think I'll have to end here. Grantara Srimad Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanandi.